Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our public planning hearing for Monday, April 29th, 2024. We have 6 files this evening: Zaitz, George Martin, Benji Martin, Tilman Martin, Feversham Daycare, and the Utopia plant fiber pulping, in that order. So I'll call this meeting to order at 5 o'clock. Ask if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest. Not seeing anything. Let me know if something does arise. Get into the script here. This public meeting was called under Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, concerning 6 proposed zoning bylaw amendments to the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2004-50. Any person or public body is entitled to attend the public meeting and make written or oral submissions in support of or in opposition to any of the proposed amendments. Written comments should be submitted to the planning department. Councillor Wickens, could you mute your mic, please?
Okay, I'm not sure how to do that. I'm on my phone call.
Perhaps the clerk, maybe the clerk. There we go. Thank you. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of Grey Highlands before the zoning bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council of the municipality of Grey Highlands to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And in addition, they may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. It is important to note that if you wish to be mailed a notice of the passing of the bylaw and or notice of decision, and you do not live within 120 meters of the subject property, you must provide your request in writing to the planning department of the municipality of Grey Highlands. Registering for this virtual meeting does not represent your written request. A guideline sheet is available upon request. So item 3.1 is zoning bylaw amendment application number Z13-2024, Zaitz. It's affecting lands owned by Aaron Zaitz and Morgan Weatherall Holding Corporation. The subject lands legal description is part lot 20, concession 12, Artemesia, part 1 and 2, 16R9578, STGS 114707, except parts 1, 2, and 3. 16R 11491 Grey Highlands, and it has a civic address of 465304. Concession, 12th concession A. And the benefiting lot, the legal description is part lot 20, concession 12, Artemesia, part 1 and 2, 17R 1107 Grey Highlands, and it has a civic address of 154584 Grey Road 32. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on the 8th day of April 2024 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. At this time, council will hear presentations by the applicant or their agent. And I see that I thought the applicant is not here this evening. Planner Pasha.
Chair, and through you, I'll be doing the presentation on behalf of the applicant because he's not here.
Okay, go ahead then.
Thank you. So the purpose of the zoning amendment is to rezone a portion of the subject property from rural to rural residential. This is a zoning amendment that was required as per a condition from a consent application earlier this month. consent application B04 and B052024. I'm just going to go over the proposal again. The subject lands are two abutting properties municipally addressed as 465-304 Todd Concession A, the western subject lot, and 154-584 Gray Road 32. Essentially, the applicant and the agent for this file, Aaron Zaitz, owns the eastern parcel of land, the smaller parcel. The proposal is to add 0.473 hectares of area from the western parcel, the larger parcel, owned by Morgan Weatherall, and merge it with the eastern property. The benefiting property will be enlarged to an area of 0.659 hectares and will have a frontage of 145 meters onto Gray Road 32. The retained lot will be reduced to an area of 36.1 hectares and will maintain its frontage of 345 meters onto 12th Concession A. A certificate of cancellation was also issued at the time of that application for the smaller lot. The current application is related to the zoning amendment to rezone the benefiting lot from rural to rural residential to facilitate the proposed consent and lot line adjustment. The rural zone provisions do not represent the proposed site characteristics of the benefiting lot, which is a smaller lot. The image that you see on the screen right now is the proposed area of the smaller lot. That's how much it's going to be expanded to. In terms of like currently the small size of the property limit any future dwelling and any related accessory structures to be situated within an 8-meter depth on the eastern property. The increase in the area of the property will allow the owner of the eastern lot to construct a dwelling and accessory structures without being limited by the provisions of the RU zone. In terms of the overview and purpose and effect, the effect of the bylaw is to amend Schedule A of the zoning bylaw 2004-50 by rezoning the severed portion of the subject lot and the entirety of the benefiting lot from the rural to rural residential with the exception 398. The exception 398 is an existing exception within Grey Highlands zoning bylaw that provides the following provisions. Notwithstanding any other provisions of the bylaw to the contrary on lands identified with a 398 exception number, the following additional provisions apply. The minimum lot area shall be 3,750 square meters and the minimum lot frontage shall be 60 meters. This exception will just bring the lot together and provide the applicant with, or just essentially give the applicant a minimum lot area and minimum lot frontage that represents the rural residential property. In terms of comments received, county planning staff have no concerns with the proposed application. Grey Highlands Building Services have no concerns with the proposed application. Grey Highlands Environmental Services have no comments or concerns from the environmental from their end. And lastly, Grey Highlands Transportation and Public Services have also stated that they have no comments or concerns. Yeah, that is all.
Okay, thank you for that. You see there's no conservation comments. Were they not received or?
Yes, so the conservation comments weren't really required in this case because it's the rezoning doesn't affect, there's no conservation authority that's
Okay.
In the area, and there's no conservation authority regulated area for that specific property and for the specific area. And they when we first circulated to them, they just stated that they didn't really have any concerns and there was nothing to regulate in the area.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, any questions from council for our planner? Okay, not seeing anything. Any person present wishing to object to or support the proposed zoning bylaw amendment or have any comments or questions, please indicate and state your name and address. And you can use the raise hand feature. I'm seeing a hand. Terry Mokri. Okay, Terry is over.
Can you hear me?
Only just. Speak up a little bit.
All right, sorry, I'm only raising my hand because this is new to me and I wasn't even sure if I was on screen, so I apologize for interrupting. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're looking, you're going to comment on a future file?
I apologize for interrupting. It's just, as I say, I'm a Luddite when it comes to this, and I wasn't sure. Actually, I emailed one of the counselors to say, am I on or not? So thank you. Please
Okay.
continue. Sorry.
So just, yeah, okay. So if we can put Terry back in the attendees, there we go. Now I see Ian Maxwell has his hand raised, but oh, he's taken it down. I think also he's maybe wanting to speak on a different lot or file. He's taken it down now, so. Okay, it's not looking like anybody from the public is wishing to speak on this file. So any last questions, further discussion from council? Okay, not seeing anything. So as there's no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for further consideration. Okay, going on to 3.2. It's zoning bylaw amendment application number Z14 2024, affecting lands owned by George L. Martin. The legal description is lot 14, concession 10, Osprey, north half lot 15, concession 10, Osprey, except part 5, GS 54287, Grey Highlands. And it has a civic address of 448144 10th concession. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on the 8th day of April 2024 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. At this time, council will hear presentations by the applicant or their agent. Is there somebody wishing to speak on this file? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so I guess we'll go to our municipal planner, Planner Pasha.
Thank you. I believe the agent is in the meeting in attendance. It's Solomon Martin. I don't know why he's
I
not
do
here.
see Solomon in attendance. Solomon, are you wishing to speak? We should have you over here in case there's any questions from council or the public. So Clerk Van Alstyne, if you could move Solomon over, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, it's Solomon Martin.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
This is just a basic metalworking shop on a 60-hectare parcel. And it's just for welding and forming of metalworks. And it will run from 7 to 7 on weekdays, and truck traffic is expected to be minimal. And I don't really have much more to say.
Okay. Well, as I say, stay on the line. Council may have a question or perhaps viewing public. So now we'll go to our municipal planner who will advise of any comments received and provide an overview of the purpose and effect of the bylaw. Planner Pasha.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to go over the proposal again. The subject property is a 60-hectare parcel of land located at the southwestern corner of 10th Concession and Gray Road 2. The southeastern corner of the property abuts the northwestern boundary of the Fevershan settlement area. The property is designated agriculture and hazard in the Grey County and Grey Highlands official plans and is subject to the agriculture, restricted agriculture, and hazard zone provisions of the zoning bylaw 2004-50. And the property contains a dwelling and a livestock facility. The applicant is proposing to establish a 250 square meter on-farm diversified use in the form of a manufacturing and fabrication workshop that may use metal, wood, or plastic products along, and is proposed to have a 750 square meter outdoor storage area that will be located directly south of the proposed OFDU. The proposed shop will be situated in an area of the property that is subject to the A2 zone provisions and a 75 square meter power room will also be attached to the proposed shop. As OFDUs are not permitted as of right within the A2 zone, therefore the applicant requires a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment to rezone a portion of the subject property from A2 to rural commercial. A site-specific rural commercial exception is being provided to permit the manufacturing and fabrication of plastic products along with metal and wood products within the OFDU. In terms of the purpose and effect, the effect of this bylaw is to amend a portion of the subject lands from restricted agriculture, A2, to rural commercial with an exception, C4 437. The 437 exception is an existing section of the zoning bylaw, 2004-50, that will permit additional uses within the C4 zone. It will permit the following: the fabrication, manufacturing, storage, and wholesale of automotive or agriculture components, a sawmill operation, including the assembly, storage, and wholesale of wood furniture products, the assembly, storage, and wholesale of plastic furniture, and lastly, the construction, storage, and sale of garden sheds. In terms of comments received, Grey County planning staff have stated that provided a 75-foot setback from the center line of the county's right-of-way is met, if any upgrades to the existing entrance are needed, county planning staff have no concerns with the subject application. Grey Sauble Conservation Authority has no objections to the proposal for the described zoning bylaw amendment application or the associated development. Grey Highlands Building Services has stated that the applicant is to be advised that as part of the building permit process, a building matrix along with proposed equipment layout will be required. All chemical or material locations should be identified on this layout. Construction to conform to the requirements of the Ontario Building Code and all applicable law in place at the time of permit submission. Grey Highlands Transportation Services has stated that applicant will be required to obtain an approved small-scale commercial entrance permit. Grey Highlands Fire and Emergency Services stated that they have no concerns from on their end. Same thing, Environmental Services has stated that they have no concerns as well. And that is all.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for our planner from council members? Okay, seeing nothing. Any person present wishing to object to or support the proposed zoning bylaw amendment or have any comments or questions, please indicate and state your name and address. You can use the raise hand feature on the computer. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody indicating that they wish to speak. So any last comments from council? Okay, as there's no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for further consideration. Okay, we're going to move on to 3.3. I see Aaron Zaitz is now in the attendee list. Aaron, we've dealt with your file and there were no questions put to our planner. Okay, item 3.3 is zoning bylaw amendment application number Z15 2024, Benji M 11th and 40, affecting lands owned by Country View Manufacturing Incorporated. The legal description is part lot 28, concession 10, EUPHRASIA, as in R321240, except part 1, 16R 9712, Municipality of Grey Highlands, and has a civic address of 825391 Grey Road 40. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on the 8th day of April 2024 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. At this time, council will hear presentations by the applicant or their agent. And is this Solomon again?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes,
Solomon.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is pretty well the same thing as the other one. It's for a metalworks and machining shop on a 140 hectare parcel of land on Grey Road 40. And it is also to address a slight deficiency from the front yard setback. That's pretty well all I have to say.
Okay. And so we'll go to our municipal planner, who will advise of any comments received and provide an overview of the purpose and effect of the bylaw. Planner Pasha.
Thank you, Chair. Just going to go over the deficiency. So essentially, on-farm diversified uses are required to be 55 meters from the front lot line, whereas the applicant has proposed to construct an OFDU from 43 meters from the front lot line. This is to allow feed trucks and supply trucks to navigate the farm cluster without the need to remove additional farmable land for the development. At the moment, the current configuration of the property, I think that's the wrong site plan that's being showed. Map. It's for Tilman. With the current configuration of where the existing livestock barn is and where the proposed C4 shop is going to go, it requires that relief from the front yard setback requirement. In terms of the overview with the purpose and effect, the effect of this bylaw is to amend a portion of the subject lands from A1 to rural commercial with the exception C4 499. The 499 exception of the zoning bylaw will permit additional use provisions within the C4 zone. On land zone C4 499, the standard provisions of the section 5.13 and section 8.4 of the bylaw 2004-50 that apply to uses within the C4 zone continue to apply, except where they conflict with the provision of the section. Where there is a conflict, the provisions of this section shall prevail. The fabrication, manufacturing, storage, and wholesale of automotive and agriculture components, a sawmill operation including the assembly, storage, and wholesale of wood furniture products, the assembly, storage, and wholesale of plastic furniture, the construction, storage, and sale of garden sheds, and notwithstanding the front yard setback requirement of 55 meters in section 8.4, a front yard setback of 43 meters shall be permitted. In terms of comments received, Grey County planning staff have stated that county transportation staff have stated they have no concerns with the rezoning, and at the time of site plan approval, county transportation staff will ask for a road widening of 5.18 meters to be conveyed to the county of Grey. Grey County planning staff have no concerns with the application. GSC has no objections to the proposal for the described zoning bylaw amendment application or the associated development. Grey Highlands Building Services have stated that the applicant is to be advised that as part of the building permit process, a building matrix along with the proposed equipment layout will be required. All chemical, gases, and material locations should be identified on this layout. Construction to conform to the requirements of the Ontario Building Code and all applicable law in place at the time of permit submission. Grey Highlands Transportation Services has stated that they have no comments or concerns. And Grey Highlands Fire and Emergency Services and Environmental Services have stated they have no concerns. That is all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've got the site plan up there now, so it was up, so you can see that the buildings are all around the end of the driveway, so I see why they're requesting that relief. Okay, any questions from council for our planner or the applicant? Councillor Allwood.
Thank you, Chair Allen. I just wanted to confirm that the exception 499, is it just a setback, or are there other uses permitted that say are permitted in the exception 437, which is what we normally see attached to C4s?
Yeah, so it's the exception 437, and then on top of that, we've added the additional part for the relief from the front yard setback, but because that's not something that we have already in our current exceptions, we had to create a new one, which is the 499.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council? Okay, not seeing anything. Any person present wishing to object to or support the proposed zoning bylaw amendment or have any comments or questions, please indicate and state your name and address. And again, you can use the raise hand feature on the computer. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. Any last comments or questions from council members? Okay, as there's no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for further consideration. Okay, item 3.4 is zoning bylaw amendment application number Z16 2024, Tilman B. Martin, affecting lands owned by Flesherton Industries, Inc. The legal description is part lot 174 to 175, concession 1, SWTSR ARTEMESIA, as in R495556, Grey Highlands, and a civic address of 773564 Highway 10. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on the 9th day of April 2024 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. At this time, council will hear a presentation by the applicant or their agent. And Solomon.
This
Sorry to
one is
butt
for-
in.
This one is for Eli Sherk, I think.
Yeah, this one is Eli Sherk, so we've got to move Solomon back over and move Eli
Okay.
over. Yep.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm the applicant, Eli Sherk, and here to answer any questions you may have. Just kind of a standard metal workshop, metal fabricating or machining, and the existing house will be demolished, and we'd like to go further back, further away from Highway 10. That's about it.
Okay. Standard days of operation and truck traffic.
Monday to Friday, 7 to 7.
Okay.
Truck traffic should be fairly minimal.
Okay. All right. So I'll go to the municipal planner and he will advise of any comments received and provide an overview of the purpose and effect of the bylaw. And this time we're having Planner Payne.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, would you like me to go over the proposal in detail, or are we comfortable moving to the purpose and effect and comments?
I think we're comfortable with just the purpose and the effect.
Got it. Okay. So the effect of this bylaw is to amend a portion of the subject lands from agriculture to agricultural with an exception, A1-437. The 437 exception is an existing section of the zoning bylaw 2004-50 that will permit additional uses within the A1 zone. So section 16.437 reads, on land zone A1-437, the following uses shall be permitted in addition to all uses that are permitted in the A1 zone. 1, the fabrication, manufacturing, storage, and wholesale of automotive or agricultural components. 2, a sawmill operation including the assembly, storage, and wholesale of wood furniture products. 3, the assembly, storage, and wholesale of plastic furniture. And 4, the construction, storage, and sale of garden sheds. In terms of comments received, we did not receive any comments from the public to this point. I shall continue to scroll to get to our comments here. Okay, so from Grey County Planning, we have no concerns with the subject application. From the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, staff find the proposal to be acceptable. From the Ministry of Transportation, because the property is on Highway 10, the Ministry of Transportation looks forward to the advancement of this development, and we anticipate receiving additional details for review and comment as the project progresses. Ministry of Transportation requires a copy of the executed site plan agreement permit issuance. From Grey Highlands Building Services, we have that the applicant is to be advised that as part of the building permit process, a building matrix along with proposed equipment layout will be required. All chemical gases and material locations should be identified on this layout. Construction to conform to the requirements of the Ontario Building Code and all applicable law in place at the time of permit submission. From Grey Highlands Fire and Emergency Services and Grey Highlands Environmental Services, we have no comments or concerns. That is all.
Okay, all right. Any questions from council for our planner or the applicant? And we're doing this exception to the A1 zone because of MTO, not liking a commercial operation of Highway 10.
Yep, that's as per their request. So
Yeah.
that's how we do these ones. Yep.
Okay. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands from council members. Any person present wishing to object to or support the proposed zoning bylaw amendment or have any comments or questions, please indicate and state your name and address. And again, the raise hand feature on the computer. Okay, not seeing any hands. Last chance for council to comment, ask question. No, okay. As there's no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for further consideration. Okay, our next item is 3.5 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z17 2024 Feversham Daycare. And it's affecting lands owned by 2137569 Ontario Inc. The legal description is part lot 16, concession 9, Osprey, part 1, 16R8946, Grey Highlands, and has a civic address of 494283 Grey Road 2. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on the 9th day of April, 2024 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. At this time, council will hear presentations by the applicant or their agent. And I'm seeing Bill White raising his hand, so Clerk Van Alstyne, if you could move him over.
Chair Allen, I believe that Terry Murphy is actually the agent on this file.
I think Terry Murphy was the applicant, and because there is, I think it's Triton Engineering, and I believe I remember reading Bill White's name. So I think we'll move Bill White over, and perhaps Clerk Van Alstyne, I see Sandy and Jamie Gott's hand up, perhaps move them over also as the owners of the property. Okay, we've got everybody over here. So
We go.
Did we lose somebody?
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, there you are. Okay,
Hello.
keep jumping around on my screen. Okay, yes, go ahead.
Has it been a while since I moved that fast?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Some of you are very familiar faces. My name is Bill White. I currently work for Triton Engineering as a part-time planning consultant. I was formerly CAO for the town of Minto and saw many of you at meetings together down there in the past. And I actually am a former resident of Grey Highlands. As you know, you've described the property accurately. This is a proposed daycare and a private school to be located at the former bank property. It's approximate, just under 4 acres in size, 1.5 hectares, and it abuts residential lots to the south and east, farmlands and church to the north, and the Ice River Springs Bottling Company is to the west. The zoning is a highway commercial zone. It does not allow a daycare or a private school, but it was formerly a credit union, and it's roughly 175 square meters in size. So their proposal is an exciting one to bring daycare services to this community, and they would adaptively reuse the building for classrooms, play areas, quiet rooms, etc. So they propose to add daycare and private school as permitted uses in the C2 110 zoning. The building as it sits complies with the site and building regulations that are laid out for the property right now. The idea at this point is to bring people in the left, or I guess it would be the north entrance, and queue them around the back of the building. And then there's a covered area where unloading and loading of children can occur outside the elements, at least the rain and so forth. And then people would exit the site the same way. The septic system, the paved parking is in pretty good condition. The septic system is fairly far, 25 meters from the south lot line. And it's a wonderful site because it has a large wooded area that could be used for outdoor activities. One of the issues that was raised in the pre-consultation with the Grey Highlands planners, who have been wonderful in getting back to us, is the proximity of the Ice River Springs facility. There was a bottling, the bottling plant is there, and there was a D6 land use compatibility report done by a professional engineering firm, and they've confirmed the setbacks for that are appropriate. And they, because the daycare is slightly more sensitive use, they had to look at that, and they were comfortable with that recommendation, and we support that as an appropriate analysis. This daycare and private school will meet an important demand in the community. You can never get enough daycare spaces. It supports employment growth in the community, and we believe the rezoning is consistent with provincial planning policy, the county and Grey Highlands official plans, and helps develop a more complete community and represents good planning practice.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'll go to our municipal planner, and he will advise of any comments received and provide an overview of the purpose and effect of the bylaw. Planner Payne, please.
Sorry, Chair. I just saw that Sandy has jumped on screen. I'm wondering whether she
Okay.
had anything to add on to Bill's
Okay,
description there.
all right. I was looking at my script. Sorry, Sandy, I missed that. Do you have something to add?
I just wanted to say that we had been speaking with Kim Edwards and Joe Zicke about another property that potentially could have been a daycare, and they are the operators of the 100-acre wood near Heathcote, and so they're experienced daycare providers. That property didn't work out because there would have had to be so much work done to the building to meet fire codes and such. So, and it was a 2.5 story, so it's really not a good site. So we were a bit disappointed, and then the bank opportunity came up. It had been vacant for some time, and it went up to auction, and so I thought it would be a great idea to try to convert that to a daycare. So Kim and Joe would operate the facility. It would be somewhat like a forest preschool. The kids would spend a lot of time outside, so they're really happy to have that land on the lot with the trees. That would all stay. They've secured some funding to do some of the renovations. They're planning 34 spaces and 8 staff. And the spaces are subsidized spaces because they're experienced operators. So that would be really good for the community. Yeah, so, you know, it's a good lot. It's a good building. Doesn't take as much to renovate it to get it up to code for that use. We don't have any plans to expand upon that. New septic would have to be installed. And that's all I have in case I would be available to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll get a report from our planner, and then I'll go to council and then the public for questions. Okay, Planner Payne.
Thank you, Chair Allen. So in terms of the purpose and effect of this file, the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone a portion of the subject lands from highway and service commercial with an exception, which is C2-110, to highway and commercial with an exception, which would be C2 with an exception 501, to permit the daycare and private school use in addition to the uses already permitted by the 110 exception. The provisions of C2-501 are as follows. Permitted uses on lands identified with the 501 exception number and described as Part Lot 16, Concession 9, OSPREY, Part 1, 16R8946, Grey Highlands shall be limited to the following uses. Professional and business offices, retail commercial, financial institutions, passive and active recreational uses, medical clinics, personal service shops, a daycare center and private school that will not be permitted on the same lot as any of the above listed uses, or uses, buildings, and structures accessory to a permitted use. In terms of comments on the file, from Grey County, we have comments from 4 different departments. From Grey County Planning, we have provided Grey Highlands building staff are satisfied that the proposed use can be safely serviced by on-site water and sewage servicing. County planning staff have no concerns. Grey County Planning Ecology had no concerns. Grey County Children's Services had no concerns. And Grey County Transportation Services had this to say: the proposed daycare is to use the existing entrances, and no new entrances are indicated on the site plan. Therefore, no entrance permit is required. No road widening or 0.3 meter conveyance is requested in the urban area. From Grey Highlands Building Services Department, we have that the building services will require a change of use permit with general review from architect and engineer, and to meet the requirements of the Child Care and Early Years Act. A septic assessment from a qualified designer to confirm existing on-site sewage system meets occupancy, and all applicable laws must be met at the time of building permit application. From Grey Highlands Transportation and Public Spaces Department, we have no comments or concerns. From Grey Highlands Environmental Services, we have no concerns. From Environmental Services, just the comment that the proponent should be aware of the regulations pertaining to child care facilities and water sampling and testing. From Grey Highlands Fire and Emergency Services, no concerns. Oh, sorry, just a comment that the applicant will need to secure a building permit for the change of use for the building. And that is all.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from members of council for either our planner, the owners of the property, or their agent? Councillor Lowehead.
Thank you, Chair Allen. This is a bit of an aside, but I'm just wondering if anybody knows if that the old credit union is within the 50-kilometer-an-hour zone along Grey Road 2, or if that's within the 80. Just for my own curiosity, I suppose.
I'm seeing 2 nods of heads, but does anybody, any staff or the agent, do we know what the speed limit is there for sure?
If I may, am I on?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, it's within the 50-kilometer-an-hour zone.
Okay.
That's an affirmative.
I'm seeing a nod from Sandy too, so okay. All right. Any other questions, Mayor McQueen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I was sort of following up with the same thought maybe with Councilor Lowehead was, yeah, it's 50 there. Since there's cars showing on the site map, will individuals be able to walk there is from the village as well? I'm not sure if there's a sidewalk there or not, but I don't think there is. But I guess my thought process is that would that be, it shows cars on the site map, but well, it being a village, will parents be able to walk their children there as well? It's a two-part question, so.
Right. I don't know, Planner Payne?
Well, we don't have any provisions in place to prevent people from walking there if they wish to. I would hope that they take their own safety into their hands and walk there in a careful way. However, my comments would be limited to that at this point. Did you have anything to add there, Bill?
I might add that I believe it abuts on what shows to me as Peel Street at the back by the church and the cemetery, I believe, is up there. I don't know whether people would tend to come up that way as opposed to up the county road, but there may be a way to bring people through the safer back of the property, depending on trails and so forth in that way as an alternative. But as far as I know, I don't recall there being sidewalks there, and there's nothing showing on any of the recent Google maps. So I think safety is an issue. It may be a possible way to come up from the back on Peel Street.
Okay.
So following up on that through you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So I, certainly very supportive of this concept, and safety is very important. I'm just thinking, and myself and Deputy Mayor Nielsen are on the county council, and if this is something that moves forward, maybe there's a section there, at least during hours, maybe it could be reduced to 40 kilometers an hour, just in the sense of safety. It's just a hypothetical thing at this point, but I know on Gray Road 4 with the, certainly the public school is certainly, there are people that do walk to the school and stuff like that, and there are certain times that it is reduced to, but I don't know if that's a possibility, just in the sense, I don't recall seeing sidewalks there. There's a paved shoulder there, I think, or a widened part of that, maybe that section there, but it's just something that maybe to follow up on, that certainly myself and the deputy mayor maybe could, follow up with the transportation staff if that is a possibility, just because of people coming in and out of there, and also with, if there are parents walking their children, certainly safety is important for sure.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else? Any comments, questions? Okay, not seeing anything. I'll go to the public now. Any person present wishing to object to or support the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, or have any comments or questions, please indicate and state your name and address. And I'm seeing somebody with their hand raised, Sunny Gervan. We could move, there we go.
Good afternoon, good evening.
Hi.
Bear with me while I work with my throat in this. My name is Sunny Gervan. I'm a resident at 115 River Road. I live here with my family for over a decade. And our rear property line runs about 100 meters down the south property line of the proposed daycare. I do support the idea of a daycare. I have some concerns though, and some questions about the development, given that the site plan is only a little snippet of what the whole site looks like. And there does appear to be some changes there. So I feel like there's some inconsistencies maybe in the report about what's proposed, what's going to happen with the trees, where the parking is going to be, and appropriate setbacks. Specifically, down along the south property line right now at the building where the covered portico is, there are 8 parking spaces shown in an area that does not appear to be paved now, and that contains probably a total of 30 trees along that property line. At least 18 of them would be sort of in that area. And the proposal states that there is 0 trees proposed to be cut if possible. But this to me looks like that it is it's not possible to have these new parking spots without cutting trees. That also provides drainage for that paved area. And that is either close to or abuts two residential properties, mine and my neighbor's property there. So that's one of my concerns there. And I just wanted to have a look at my notes here. Yeah, so those trees that are there, aside from, you know, being trees, and there's lots of trees on that lot, but those trees specifically do help screen noise and light and exhaust from the road, from Ice River plant. And, you know, what's proposal as an increase in car traffic that's going to come around the back of that building. And that the back portion of my residence is very close to that property line further down towards the east, but it's if there would be any further expansion, you know, a daycare in the existing bank property or financial institution totally makes sense, but granting a sort of tacit blank slate for a private school, I wonder if we don't have an opportunity to have more conversations about that prior to, you know, saying that private school, adding that on quickly is, I just feel like daycare is one thing, private school may be something else. I don't know though, because we haven't really been able to talk about it.
Okay.
And I understand any future work is subject to site plan control and zoning and building and permit reviews and applicable law reviews. And so all of that could be looked at sometime in the future. However, you know, where the current septic system is and needing expansion, is that going to affect the wells that are down the hill from there? That's, you know, my neighbor, myself, my neighbor also, you know, to the east of me. And so these kinds of concerns, I think, are important. And I just have one more thing to add about the D6 land use compatibility report. And specifically in table 2, I did read through the things that were online, and thank you for that. And I wish that the site plan had been a little more, a little better, just so I could understand where the property lines are, because those are cut away. But with table 2, it talks about noise and that the sound is occasionally off the property from the plant, and that it's a minor annoyance. And that's not been my experience here, that it's not noisy occasionally, but more often than not, that plant does produce a lot of humming and buzzing, and it's all night, and it is during the day. We have reached out and tried to come to talk about this with the owners, but we still experience noise from there. There is no ground vibration from the facility likely, or but we do experience ground vibration from the trucks that come in and out. They come over the bridge quite often above the 50 limit. You know, we've been talking about that, I think, with council. Various members of this community have expressed, and I know that's different, but the trucks roar through here, not only for the plant, but for other places. And so that's something to consider. However, there is vibration. My windows rattle here in the house. And
okay, we're discussing right now the daycare. So
sure.
Sure.
So with apologies, Chair. But I think that, you know, the daycare and is closer to the road than my place, and you might consider that this report and the table 2 that says that there aren't a lot of issues, that there might be. And their last point there is that fugitive emissions are low, but that's not zero. And I'm just wondering if, you know, this report to me seems to be a little inconsistent with my experience of living in this neighborhood. And, you know, with that said, I just want to make sure that the documents that are being shared, you know, are complete enough, are really accurate, and that you guys know from somebody who lives right there what my experience is. Thank you for your time, councillors and chairman.
Okay, thank you. So I'm looking at Grey County maps. Are you does your driveway come off of 2 or does it come off of River Road?
Comes off of River Road, and you
Okay,
might
so
see.
you're the second property back
That's right.
with the pool. Yes, okay. All
Yes,
right.
so there's no pool there any longer.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm assuming staff took notes, but I have the trees, a possible expansion, septic, the D6 study for noise and emissions. So we'll start with the trees. I'm looking again at Grey County maps. It looks like there's some, I'm looking at a 2015 map, and they look fairly small trees then, but that was 9 years ago. Are those trees going to stay, or will they be removed for those 8 parking spots?
Mr. Chair, perhaps I could answer that.
Okay.
All along, when discussing this with the applicants and their agent as well, no trees were to come down. The site plan that's in the report is the one that was submitted for the credit union, and the person who spoke just now is correct. There are parking spaces shown there that appears were never put in, and they would be on the south part of the property. So the applicants proposed to meet the parking rate that's required for the number of classrooms however they can without taking trees down. What appears to be on the ground out there, just looking at Google Maps, is some kind of infiltration catchment area for surface water.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they would have to be very careful going out in that location. The other location they might be able to do is where the sign is in front of the building, is flip the parking that's against the building and put it also between the 2 entrances and park in that location. But the intent all along was to take no trees down and to utilize the existing building. There's no expansion at this time, and they would be complying with the site and building regulations that are in that current zone. And as far as the D6,
well, just hold on just 1 minute. I want to kind of take these in order. I've got them. So Planner Payne, another concern was expansion and the possibility of having to have a larger septic. If there was expansion proposed, would it, I know there'd have to be site plan, but would there have to be any further application, public hearing or anything like that?
So depending on what they would want to expand to do, the answer could be different. My understanding is that private school was added to the list of permitted uses mainly to allow the business owner to accommodate children over the age of 10. Zoning bylaw 2004-50 has a provision for child care centers that limits the applicant to being able to take in students to the age of 10. And so they've added the private school use to be able to take in children above the age of 10. We don't see this as an issue in terms of capacity, because the capacity for the building is the capacity for the building. If they were to choose to expand in the future, they would need to do so in such a way that meets the zoning provisions that will exist following this meeting. If their expansion does not meet the zoning provisions of the rezoned zoning for this property, they'll have to go through another amendment. If not, they'll still have to go through site plan control. They'll still have to, you know, show that everything is up to par. The capacity of the sewage and septic would be something that gets kind of triggered by any building permit application. And so that would kind of be the catch.
And there's setbacks from neighboring wells. That's in, you know, the rules. So, okay. Okay, the other two were the D6 study for noise and emissions. So I'll go back to Bill for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's done by a professional engineer. So, I mean, we were just going by the recommendations that he put forward in that report. It is a sensitive use, obviously. The majority of the time, the children will be indoors, but when they're outdoors, most of the time they will be behind likely the building and not in front in the parking areas. But that's why the staff recommended the D6 be done. The clients did engage a professional engineer to do that analysis. And that's what the recommendation came from, and they were comfortable with it as professional engineers.
Okay. All right. Sunny, those are the comments. Do you have any follow-up?
Yes, just referring again to the zoning for private school versus zoning for daycare only. I feel like the zoning for a private school is probably much more lenient beyond just age of 10. And, you know, I just want the counselors to consider that when they are looking at, you know, once we have the zoning amendment in place, without any actual plan for private school, if they come along later and say, well, you know, I just don't want it to be a tacit approval of a private school that's much larger or different than the original conception of this lovely daycare free school, which earlier was said that a majority of the time may be spent outside, but now, you know, a majority of the time might be spent inside away from the noise in the plant. So I just feel like there's some inconsistencies in some of this, and I don't want it to prevent the daycare from coming here, or I just think for the neighborhood, you know, to actually consider, you know, keeping what's happening here and to follow this report. There's a few things in there that seem to allow it to go places without actually having discussed it with the community, you know, by adding on private school, for instance. Just that, thank you.
Okay. All right. So there will be a report done by our planners, excuse me, our planners, and they will come back to council. Hopefully these items that you've talked about will be addressed in that report, or I shouldn't say hopefully, those items will be addressed. So council will have all that information when it comes back to us.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate your time and
Okay.
the platform.
And we do appreciate your comments. Thank you. Okay, I'm going back to the public. I see Terry Mokry has his hand up. We could move Terry over.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, can you hear me now? Thank you.
Yeah.
As a retired principal who dealt with both daycares and schools, private schools and public, I support the idea of a daycare center. That's a great idea, but I would provide a caveat to council that the Education Act has definitions of daycares and private schools, and the two are not similar. So for someone to put in a daycare, for example, you don't need qualified teachers, but if you have a private school, you need qualified teachers. So those are kinds of things that don't deal with zoning, but there's something that both the proponent and council should be aware of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the bill has heard that. and the owners of the property have heard that. So as Terry said, that's not something that we regulate through zoning, so that's up to the owners. Okay, anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Raise hand feature on the computer. Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands go up. Okay, any further comments or questions from members of council? Mayor McQueen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good discussion, good comments. The only last comment I'll make is if there are people walking on Gray Road 2, walking their children, and it's, you know, up to 10 years old, even signage might be even something that indicates to the driving public that there are, you know, people using that, because there's not really a sidewalk along that area. You know, so it might, because of what the new use is going to be, it might encourage people to walk, which is great. I just think to the county and the driving public, I think there needs to be some awareness, because there's a new use being provided there, and just you know, we want people to be safe, and the driving public to be aware there may be people walking with kids along that area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, not seeing anything. So as there's no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for further consideration. Okay, item 3.6 is zoning bylaw amendment application number Z 18/2024, Utopia Plant Fiber Pulping. And it's affecting lands owned by Alexandra Gott. The legal description is lot 17, concession 12, Osprey, except part 4, 17R3428, Grey Highlands, has a civic address of 468-264 Grey Road 31. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on the 9th day of April, 2024 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. At this time, council will hear a presentation by the applicant or their agent. Bill.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if Sandy had a brief presentation. I'm not sure if she wants to go before me or after me, but is she still in the?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bill,
go ahead, Sandy.
I would like to go first. We sent in a short PowerPoint. If I could could that be possible? We put that on the screen?
Yep.
All right, great. Okay. So we call this project Utopia Plant Fiber. It's under our OSPREY Organics. Alexandra Gott, by the way, that's me. That's what my parents.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So the Utopia vision is to grow nutrient-dense food in a circular economy where waste outputs from one process are the raw material inputs for the other process. We want to store atmospheric carbon in the soil, expand on our regenerative agriculture, and regenerate the soil to make it healthier. We could go to the next slide, please. So why Grey Highlands? And we've listed some reasons there why Grey Highlands, but it's because we live here and because this is, you know, where our heart is, and this is what where we've been working really hard on our OSPREY Organics business and all the different components of that. And this will tie all of those things together. So really what we want to be able to do is with greenhouses, with mushroom growing, with pyrolysis, and with this pulp manufacturing facility, is we want to tie all of these things together and you know, it's all ag related, which is why we want to do it where we do it. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this is our circular economy that we're wanting to build. So the OSPREY Organics farms are in the local area. The greenhouse, there's 4 buildings that we would build. The greenhouse organic vegetables, the organic oyster mushrooms, the biochar pyrolysis, and the plant fiber pulping. All of these things will feed each other. For example, the plant fiber pulping would be manufactured from farm products, hay, straw, mostly straw, from our farms, but also from other farms in the area. And then the pulp from that would go to our Greenlid facility, which is in Dundalk, to be further processed into cutlery or plates, bowls, all the products that Greenlid is selling today, but we want to self-manufacture those. The mushroom substrate would feed the pyrolysis system. Pyrolysis system would heat the greenhouse and the mushroom facility. All of those products would go in through our farmers market that we're building today. Which would use products from the OSPREY Organics mill. The fines that come off the mill would also go into the biochar pyrolysis and into the plant fiber pulping, but mostly it would be straw-based materials that we'd be using. So we could go to the next slide, please. So here's the process: mushroom growing, the CO2 that's produced through the mushroom, which I didn't know years ago. Mushrooms produce CO2 when they grow. And when you transfer that to the greenhouse, that creates a richer environment for the greenhouse plants to grow and thrive and be productive. The biochar would be made from plant fiber, generating heat for other facilities. So for example, the substrate that we grow the mushrooms on would go into the biochar process. The greenhouse fruits and vegetables would be heated by the pyrolysis and CO2 from mushrooms, and the products would be sold in the new farmers market. And the plant fiber, which would all be non-wood, so no trees would be cut, be non-wood, farm-related fibers that we would be mechanically processing into pulp and then manufacturing into compostable single-use products in the Greenlid facility in Dundalk. So next slide, please. So this is the mechanical pulping. So it's important to distinguish the difference between mechanical pulping facility and a chemical pulping facility. So this would be just strictly mechanical. There'd be no bleach. All the products that Greenlid sells today are not bleached. They're all natural colors. And the plant fiber is the most eco-friendly for disposable tableware because it's made from natural materials without adding any harmful chemicals. And all of these items are biodegradable and compostable and end up in and can be backyard compostable as well. So the facility would mechanically process straw from OSPREY Organics, and then it would be further processed in Dundalk. The other thing that's important to know is it's a closed loop water system with zero discharge. So, and our plan too is to catch rainwater that's coming off the buildings on the site as well to feed a storage tank and use that water as well. But all the water gets used up in this process and in making this pulp. So next slide, please. So that's our goal, to create a circular economy, have agriculture innovation, carbon sequestering, zero waste to landfill, which is what we do in our plants, and produce nutrient-dense organic food. So thank you. I'll leave it to Bill now to explain all of his expertise.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for Sandy. One of the fun things about being in my situation is you only have to take on projects that really excite you. And this was one, aside from getting new affordable housing in Ontario, but farming in a state-of-the-art facility was something that really excited me, especially with the zero output approach and the circular economy. And so I think Sandy's done a fantastic job of describing the operation. The issue here really relates to the plant fiber pulping building and whether it is an agricultural use or not. Again, in consulting with your planners at the time, they felt that it would require as a rezoning because it is an agricultural related use. The others would be considered agricultural uses and therefore would be permitted under the zoning that's in place for the site right now. We looked at this relative to the county and the Grey Highlands official plan, as well as the guidelines on permitted uses in Ontario prime agricultural lands. And unfortunately, those links in my report did not work to that particular publication, but it's an excellent publication that gives a broad description of all the things that are encouraged and allowed to go on in agricultural areas. And I know that the applicants and their agents have consulted with the Ministry of Agriculture as well as the county, and there seems to be support for this innovative and state-of-the-art facility. Certainly the official plans for the two municipalities and provincial policy are a little more broad as far as what's permitted by policy as an agricultural use. The Grey Highlands zoning bylaw is a little more restrictive as it currently stands. So that's hence why we're here to ask for a zoning change to allow the pulping facility as an agricultural related use. Essentially, the existing driveway would be used past the silo buildings and the existing hay building. And the site location has been chosen in the middle of the 40 hectares to keep a separation from any sensitive uses that may be around there. Again, a D6 was done by the same engineers that did the D6 for the previous application. And they believe the setbacks that are proposed from the agricultural cluster of buildings and the pulping building are appropriate. As we heard, it is basically zero input or output farming, but it is state of the art. So the applicants wanted to make sure that was addressed. All was talked about. The private well and septic will be provided. The septic is more or less just for the people who will be working there. It is a state-of-the-art facility. We're certainly recommending that the municipality amend its zoning bylaw to permit the processing that's allowed. Just a little bit about the zoning analysis that I did later on in the report. I did, and Andrew was kind enough to point this out today, the lot coverage provision is 5%. I had provided a lot coverage of 0.5%. It's actually with the hay storage building that went up and the silos and the buildings that are proposed, we're right at the 5% lot coverage. And the applicant is, or maybe slightly over based on the building sizes that we have shown. The applicant has discussed that and they would like to stay under the 5%. So buildings will be made slightly smaller, in particular possibly the mushroom one will be made smaller in order to stay under the 5% lot coverage. So we're not asking for any further relief, and the applicants would comply with the 5% lot coverage. I don't have any further to add at this point other than to point that out, and would be happy to answer any further questions.
Okay, thank you for that. I think part of the application too is the height of that building. I believe you want to go 15 meters as opposed to 11. I'm sure our planner will bring that up too, but
that's correct.
Okay. Where am I? The municipal planner will advise of any comments received and provide an overview and the purpose and effect of the bylaw. Planner Payne.
Thank you, Chair Allen. For the overview of the purpose and effect, the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is as follows: to rezone a portion of the property from agriculture to agriculture with an exception, A1 500. Within the land subject to the 500 exceptions, the following additional uses are permitted. 1. a plant fiber pulping facility with a maximum ground floor area of 7,000 square meters, in which local plant fiber will be processed and pulped to be shipped off-site for manufacturing. 2, the maximum building height for the plant fiber pulping facility structure shall be 15 meters. 3, notwithstanding any provision to the contrary, the minimum required number of parking spaces is 40. 4, notwithstanding any provision to the contrary, the minimum required number of loading spaces is 4. In terms of comments from Grey County Transportation, we have a commercial entrance permit will be required for the new entrance. From Grey County Planning, staff originally asked for more information on the servicing for the proposal than was included in the initial circulation. The proponent provided further detail, and Grey County Planning staff have since advised that they are satisfied with the additional information provided and had no further comment. From Grey County Planning Ecology, we have site alteration required for the development should be limited to be outside of the active bird nesting season. From Grey Highlands Building Services Department, we have that the building services has no concerns in regard to this development. At the building permit application, the applications will meet all requirements of the Ontario Building Code and Farm Code and will address access, route design, and adequate water supply for firefighting. From Grey Highlands Transportation and Public Spaces Department, from Grey Highlands Environmental Services, and from Grey Highlands Fire and Emergency Services, we have no comments or concerns. And that is all.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from members of council? Okay, Councillor Wickens, and then I'll go to the mayor.
Thank you. I was wondering about odor from the pulping plant. I wonder if anybody could enlighten me a little on that subject.
Okay, who would like to take that? Bill or Sandy? Or
I mean, that
or
might be
Planner
more of a
Payne?
Sandy question, but I'm not aware that there would be anything significant coming out of those operations that would impact on from an odor perspective. But perhaps Sandy would have more information because she knows the operation far better than I.
Sandy?
Sure. So this is like a mechanical process where the fibers get they're tumbled and they go through water and they get made into sort of like a mash, but there's no fermenting process. So there's no odor from this process because of that. It's basically you just work through and get these fibers as thin as you can. You could almost make paper with them at that point, but no odor.
What products are you talking? Like, is this hay and straw and things like that, or?
Yeah, mostly straw that would come off of, like, after you do your obviously you do your grain harvest, and the straw. We would buy straw from other farmers too. You can get into other types of materials, like if you could get into someone to grow switchgrass for us, or there's a couple of different grasses that work really well for this purpose as well. But that would require either that we plant it on our land, so that we do some agreements with local farmers that they would grow it, and a lot of those are perennial crops too. So it's another way you can go as well.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up, Councillor Wickens? Are you okay? Okay, Mayor McQueen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Councillor Wickens, for that question, because that sort of put something in my mind. I know switchgrass is something that grows very dense, so if there's a future for switchgrass, it's always a positive thing as well. This is sort of just a planning question. Looking at the site plan, all the lots in OSPREY are in a slight angle, but your site plan is square. And I just, to me, like, you know, your setbacks from your lot lines and stuff, it just doesn't quite fit.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if that's for a reason, or, You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
don't know what the degree is of all the survey in OSPREY here or whatever, but it just sort of, it looks like a square peg. It's not quite fitting the square peg, but I just wondered if that's done on purpose, or is there a lay of the land, or is there a reason for that? Because you would change your setbacks from both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, if I may, through you, Mr. Chair, that we've had talked about that. I guess everybody who farms up there would obviously know that as of their everyday life. So I think we were trying to situate it kind of keeping in mind the county roads around it, but I don't know. I mean, it could, if it seemed to look better, we could orient it along with the lot lines as well. See, Gray Road 2 is sort of follows it as well. So, I mean, we toyed with it back and forth. So as of now, it sits like that. We would comply with the setbacks anyway. It could change. It's only the pulping facility would potentially be subject to site plan control, I suppose, and we could look at that. That's where it sits as of now, kind of. I want to say cockeyed on there, but yeah.
I just I don't see a problem with it. I just, you know, when you farm, everything's straight and aligned and lineal. It just sort of jumped out at me. It's like, oh, it doesn't quite fit, right? So anyway, thank you for that.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Not seeing anything, so I'll go to the public. Any person present wishing to object to or support the proposed zoning bylaw amendment or have any comments or questions, please indicate and state your name and address. And use the raise hand feature. Terry Mulkery has raised his hand.
Thank you. Terry Mulkery, 468-316 Gray Road 31. I'm on the farm immediately to the east of the proposal. Now, I'd like to thank Andrew Payne, first of all, for providing me with the information on Friday about the planning report. So I'm not going to have as pretty a PowerPoint because I haven't had much time in which to do this. I won't have a PowerPoint at all. I'd like to apologize. Well, not apologize. I'd just like to thank the council for at least looking at, I hope, the 3 or 4 presentations that I sent to you. I'd like to preface my comments by saying that the proposal before you will in fact result in a high density.
Terry.
Yes.
Your volume just dropped about 75%.
All right. How's this? Is it better?
That's better.
I'd like to preface my comments by stating that the proposal before you will...
It keeps cutting out, Terry. It's in and out.
What do I do to help that out?
Not sure. Do you have a headset on or?
No, I'm talking through speakers on this computer.
Oh, okay. Well, keep trying, but it was okay just then, but it is cutting in and out.
All right, I'll try again. I'd like to preface my comments by stating that the proposal before you will in fact result in a high density industrial complex or an industrial mall located on approximately 90 acres of arable land. The proponent calls for the property to house 6 separate buildings covering approximately 277,235 square feet and towering 15 meters or approximately 4.5 stories high. When completed, the industrial complex will be home to a multi-silo feed grain storage cleaning complex, 30,000 foot square storage building, 30,000 square foot greenhouse, 30,000 square foot biochar pyrolysis building, 30,000 square foot mushroom warehouse and growing warehouse, and a 75,002 square foot plant pulping building, along with approximately 24,219 square feet of gravel road. This large and overpowering complex of buildings is one that would be found in an industrial park, example Echo Park in Dundalk, and not on land zoned A1 agriculture. Under the municipal bylaw, A1 permitted uses lists the first primary use as all agriculture uses, including intensive agricultural uses. That's a quote. Agricultural uses are outlined. However, specialty agriculture is excluded. One would argue that this proposal is indeed a primary manufacturing plant in which raw material is made into a product, which is then transformed into a secondary form to be shipped and sold. As a majority shareholder of Greenland, Ice River Sustainable Solution operates a non-wood fiber manufacturing and innovation center at Southgate Eco Park, where they quote unquote specialize in developing Ontario's agricultural fiber waste into high value compostable products. End of quote. They wish to quote, and I quote their paper, to expand and build manufacturing operations in rural Ontario. End of quote. By their own admission, this is a manufacturing process. Eco Park is 140 acres zoned industrial, and it caters to industry and manufacturing. It is not an A1 agricultural designated area. The pulping process and its product is the definition of excluded specialty agriculture. There is no quote unquote produce produced on the premises or other similar uses customarily carried out in the field of general agriculture. In wishing to establish a fiber pulping product manufacturing complex on A1 agricultural zoned land, OSPREY Organic Utopia is adding to the loss of productive acres and appears to be heading for dystopia. In the past 35 years, 2.8 million acres of farmland have been lost in Ontario. Recent census of agriculture reported that annually 16,478 farmland acres are lost. This is 319 to 320 acres per day. Currently, organic farmers in Ontario constitute anywhere from 1.8 to 2.1% of total farms. In their 2021 sustainability report, OSPREY Organics, one of the Ice River Sustainable Solutions family of companies, stated that they had 3,500 acres of farmland. Placing the pulping complex on organically designated farmland would be counterproductive. It should be noted that total area of arable land in this application is under 40 hectares. There is a woodlot in the southern quadrant. It should also be noted there exists a 30,000 square foot building currently designated as hay storage. The property calls for the construction, the proposal calls for the construction of 4 more buildings. 2 of the 4 buildings are the same size as the current building designated as hay storage. The total area covered by the existing and proposed buildings and roads is approximately 277,235 square feet. A response to the planning report. The planning report fails to fully capture the negative effects which will accrue if this development is allowed to proceed. The report exhibits a bias in mentioning the benefits of the proposal, but does not cite or mention any of the negative effects of pulp processing or pyrolysis in terms of production, chemicals, heat energy sources and requirements, greenhouse gas emissions, increased traffic on already extremely busy county road. The planning report cites the CSNANR 2024 publication, which states, and I quote, biochar is being promoted for its potential to improve soil properties, fertility, and carbon sequestration in soil while producing renewable energy. This is a Washington-based center which constructed a small pyrolysis burner. In the report, the very next sentence, the article states, and this was not quoted by the planning report, research results on how this material, biochar, may impact soils within temperate regions is contradictory. Biochar is simply the carbon-rich material that's made from a biomass through a thermochemical conversion process known as pyrolysis. The A1 500 exemption allows the height of the plant fiber pulping plant to have a height of 15 meters. Our zoning bylaw permits a height of 2.5 stories. 15 meters is equal to 49.212 feet of, or 4.5454 stories high. That's 2 times the allowed height of 2.5 stories. The proposal calls for a treed berm on the north and west sides of this industrial complex. If the 15-meter height is allowed, the treed berm would need to be quite a large structure. Parking spaces, I love this one. The zoning bylaw 2004-50 requires approximately 95 parking spaces, 14 loading spaces, and aisle widths. The bylaw is a legally constituted municipal document. The planning report recommends circumventing the bylaw by allowing a minimum required parking spaces of 40 and loading spaces of 4. This is a reduction of 65 spaces. The justification provided in the report is that the numbers in the zoning bylaw would, quote, result in an unacceptable amount of agricultural lands being brought out of production. One would argue that placing 4 buildings, loading areas, and a gravel road occupying 277,235 square feet, or 31,718 square meters on agricultural land would also, quote unquote, result in an unacceptable amount of agricultural lands being brought out of production, end of quote. We were told that pyrolysis is a sustainable feature. The University of Loughborough in London, it's one of the top 20 British universities, had an article which highlights recycling, which defines the law. They call it recycling, which defines the law of physics. I won't read through it all. I'll just quote you 3 quotes from this report. However, this paper shows that self-sustaining pyrolysis, creating energy from waste, is thermodynamically unproven, practically implausible, and environmentally unsound. The result is we are putting more CO2 in the atmosphere by recycling waste via pyrolysis than if we simply burn it. It is to say that while machines which violate physical laws are not new, in a modern context, this phenomena is found to be driven by financial rewards. The above speaks to matters of provincial interest, and that is in the page 3 of the planning report, part E, the supply and efficient use of conservation of energy and water. Pyrolysis is not an environmental panacea. The plant fiber pulping plant, there are negative effects from plant fiber wheat straw pulping, and these are located, and these are indicated in a paper that you can get to at www.paperpulping.com. There's an environmental imbalance of impact of bleaching. The proponent has mentioned that they're not going to be using bleaching, but the alternative is called TCF, or total chlorine free bleaching, total chlorine free bleaching. It's more environmental friendly, but it can still have an impact on the environment according to the paper. The environmental impact statement, there's one from Saskatchewan that was dealing with a non-wood fiber pulp plant using cereal grain straw. The pulp plant was called the Red Leaf Pulp Mill. This is done in August of 2022. This paper notes the following negative effects of pulp plant: air and greenhouse gas emissions, chemicals utilized and cooked in a digestive system, solid waste disposal of sand, pebbles, rocks, debris from the bales, water, copious amounts of water required for the process, effluent disposal, liquid and sludge from the production, weed and seeds in the straws, acoustics, increased noise from pulping, complex vehicles and equipment, organic compounds, volatile organic compounds may drift with prevailing winds to nearby farms and residents. Off gases are not insignificant, but the odors are significant from processing, and of course, increased traffic on an already busy county road. OMAFRA staff reacted and said, in regard to pyrolysis, they have no objections. That's because they have no objections, because this process is in its infancy, and to state for or against pyrolysis use would be precedent setting, and OMAFRA will not do that. The planning justification report to Osprey Organic Utopia 213-7569 Ontario Inc. There are 25 pages of an engineering report commissioned by the proponent, which of course reflects the desired direction taken by the proponent. It is for obvious reasons a slanted opinion, and it could be construed that it is used to strengthen what could be perceived as a one-sided planning report. In conclusion, my submission reflects concern expressed by other residents in the proximity of the proposed zoning amendment with whom I've had discussion. It should also be noted that the aerial photograph does not accurately show the current building on the property. This large and overpowering complex of buildings plopped in the middle of a rural, pastoral, agricultural setting appears to resemble an industrial complex. It will be in stark contrast to the surrounding utopian farms and uses. The proposed plant fiber pulping complex is a manufacturing facility and not an agriculture use as per the municipality of Grey Highlands comprehensive zoning bylaw. It behooves council to deny the application. Respectfully submitted, Terry Mokry. And you should have
Okay.
received copies of this, or you will shortly, because I passed it on to Andrew.
Okay, all right. Thank you for those comments. Quite a few things in there that were brought up. Any response? The first one was chemical, and it was pointed out that this is strictly mechanical. I'm not sure if there are comments from either Bill or Sandy or our planner.
I feel I should afford Bill the opportunity to defend his report. Bill, you let me know when you'd like me to jump in.
I mean, I'm not going to get involved in the arguments about technology and what's appropriate, what's not in the processes. Those are, the applicants know about that, and they're the ones purchasing equipment and so forth to do the things that they endeavor to do on the site. I will say that from a planning perspective, that what we're considering the pulping building to be is an agricultural related use, not a specialty agriculture property or use. That's just a difference of opinion from the person who just spoke. And my professional opinion, this would be considered an agricultural related use. And when you look at the definitions in the provincial planning statement and the Ministry of Agricultural guidelines, and also even in the county official plan, you're allowed to do a certain amount of processing when you're an agricultural related use. And there's really 6 reasons or criteria that you need to meet in order to be considered agricultural related. First, that the industrial use or process produces on-site material that's used. So this pulping facility will take plant fiber from the site and others nearby and will process it. Processing, as I said, is allowed as an agricultural use. It must be compatible and not hinder surrounding operations. We believe that it would not, given its setback and distance from other farms around there. Hence the reason for the D6 analysis. And also because of the technology that's being proposed that reuses and recycles water, there's no waste output, and so forth. It must be directly related to the farm operations providing the products or services. And we believe the pulping facility is, because it makes use of plant fiber that is surplus to farm operations on this site and others. It must support the agricultural use, so it uses the surplus plant fiber from the operations on and off site, and it produces a material that is, again, shipped to a manufacturing facility where the manufacturing of the recyclable tableware would be produced. It also must provide direct products or services from the farm operations. And so it's using, again, the plant fiber that from on and off the site. And it must benefit from being near the other farm operations. And I think Sandy's slide earlier on showing the recyclable economy, the circular economy, and how these buildings relate to each other, I think it's an important, exciting principle in the state-of-the-art facility to support. Regarding the building height, the 2.5 stories, I believe, converts to, I think, 11 meters. Agricultural buildings are exempt from building height, so we're asking for a 15-meter building height in this case. And that's the only one that would be need the exemption. Yes, it is a report prepared for a client. I think we've objectively looked the provincial policy statement, the policies in the county official plan, policies in the Grey Highlands official plan, and there are exemptions required in order to achieve this this proposed development. There will not be the number of workers on this site from day to day that require all the parking that's required by the current bylaw, and that's why the reason for that exemption and others. So I believe it's making more efficient use of the soil. The intent is to condition the soil and improve it, but I'm certainly not a farmer and I don't pretend to be one. I think Sandy spoke very well to those earlier on in the evening. And just a final point, I guess, that there are a number of things that are examples of agricultural uses, including abattoirs and so forth, that processing of meat and so forth, that are allowed as agricultural related uses. And I believe the pulping facility with really zero outputs and will have very little impact based on the way the applicants are proposing to design it. That's all I have to say in defense of my report.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess as far as taking A1 land out of production, it's not taking it out of production, it's just putting a roof over it and doing the producing inside as opposed to in the open space. Anyways, okay. Anybody else want to make, Sandy or Planner Payne, any comments from either one of you, or are we okay? All these things will be addressed in the final report, and so.
I think I should chime in and just say that generally I concur with Bill. When we first received this application, I had some homework to do. I'd never heard of a pyrolysis facility. I wasn't sure what plant fiber pulping was at the time. And so we did our homework. We went to county, we asked them whether they'd ever seen this type of use. We also went to OMAFRA and asked them for their expertise and their expert opinion on the planning ramifications of permitting such a use. Everywhere we went to check on what would be appropriate here confirmed the contents of Bill's report. So this fits very solidly in with OMAFRA's interpretation of what an agricultural related report would be. I included a definition of what the difference between an agricultural related use and an on-farm diversified use is in our
Planner Payne, we've lost your audio. Can't hear you. Can everybody else hear me? Yeah.
How about
okay.
now? Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
that's good. Yeah.
Sorry, sometimes the thing comes loose here. My bad. For the parking, most of the parking provisions contained in the zoning bylaw are based on urban standards for such uses, and so we did not think it would be appropriate to have the number of spaces that would be required by our minimum parking requirements. The 40 parking spaces still seems like there will be too much parking provided for the use as described as the engineers involved in this operation. So the question was asked, daily traffic expected to and from the site. During operational days, 3 full-time staff, maximum 18 trips per day generated for staff. Trips would be spread out over the day, along with 1 transport truck. That's 1 53-foot trailer. In and out once daily. Raw materials are on site from the existing straw storage. We asked about the hours of operations. To begin with, they're saying it'll be 3 days a week, 24 hours. How many staff will be working from the facilities at peak operation? The pulping plant process will be mostly automated, and it is anticipated a maximum of 3 staff will be required at peak operation. Will the facilities on site use water as an input? How much? Dew and rainwater will be collected and used for the process, and additional water will be well water. The water is required to moisten the straw. Do you have some idea of how much wastewater from processing will be directed to the septic? And the answer was all water used for the process is consumed by the process, so there is no significant discharge. Traffic impact will be minimal, with only 3 staff and 1 tractor trailer in and out per week, and the raw material straw is already on site with the existing straw storage building and should not generate any additional traffic. And just to confirm an earlier point, this is not considered taking agricultural lands out of agricultural production, because all of the uses involved are considered agricultural or agricultural related, which is permitted by the guidelines on permitted uses, which is the document that guides the on-farm diversified uses, the agricultural uses, and the agricultural related uses. So I thought I should chime in and just say that we generally concur with the conclusions of Bill's report.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Sandy, I see you've unmuted. Did you have any comments?
Yeah, Bill has explained it. We are absolutely available to answer any further questions that have been raised, and happy to do so.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to the public to see if there's anybody else wishing to speak. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak on this file? I'm not seeing, I'm seeing Terry's hand. Is it up again or is it up still? Okay, it's not there now. Okay, anybody wishing to speak? Okay, not seeing anything. So any last comments or questions from council? And then I'll go to Planner Payne. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Planner Payne?
Sorry, I'm just seeing Terry's hand go up and down in the attendees
Yeah.
panel there. I'm wondering if he actually did have a question.
Okay.
Or further comment. Yep.
So it is up now. If we could move Terry back over.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew, for realizing that. It was like flashing my hand back and forth, back and forth. This is obviously, obviously what you said about the planning report is exactly what I said. The planning report is one-sided from the perspective of not providing anything on the other side. It's a typical David and Goliath scenario. And I just want to make sure that the presentation that I sent to Andrew will get to all the councillors.
If you've submitted that, it will be included on the final report, and some of us have received it prior to this meeting. So,
all right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so there was no other public, there were no other comments or questions from members of council. So I'm going to say that as there's no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for further consideration. Okay, so thank you, everybody that's involved in this file. It will be at a future meeting. And council and staff, it's a little bit longer meeting tonight, but thank you for hanging in there. And I will declare this meeting adjourned at 6:54. Good night, everybody.